What's going on, guys? Welcome to today's video. On today's episode of Lunatics on the Left, we see Bill Maher call out his own community for going too far left, and we'll also see some prime examples of it. We'll also see why it's dangerous for us and our country. Let's get right to it.
So that's where we are. Now can I talk about American propaganda? Because there was a rally in Dearborn, Michigan. It's a large Muslim population. Chant of death to America. I feel like we've passed something here. You know, I mean, the left has gotten mad at me for many years for talking about Islam. I try not to do it too much because I know it makes them go crazy, and I've made my point. But it needs to be talked about now. When you start chanting death to America in America, he would say to pour all your chants and all of your shouts upon the head of America. Yeah, I heard this before. Not coming from America, like the great chastisement, we will chastise the infidels. But now it's coming from inside America. Sorry, got to talk about this again. He said, we live in one of the rottenest countries that ever existed on earth. It's not just genocide, Joe, that has to go. It's the entire system that has to go.
Now, if you're not 100% sure what Bill Maher is referring to here, last week in Dearborn, Michigan, some residents came out, they had a friendly little rally for the Free Palestine movement, and then they had some choice words for America. Let's check it out.
And this is why Imam Khomeini, who declared the International Day of Quds, this is why he would say to pour all of your chants and all of your shouts upon the head of America.
الموت لأمريكا! الموت لأمريكا! الموت لأمريكا!
Malcolm X said, and I quote, "We live in one of the rottenest countries that has ever existed on this earth. It's not genocide, Joe, that has to go. It's the entire system that has to go. Any system that would allow such atrocities and such devilry to happen and would support it, such a system does not deserve to exist on God's earth." And so when these fools ask us if Israel has the right to exist, the chant death to Israel has become the most logical chant shouted across the world today.
الموت لإسرائيل! الموت لإسرائيل!
Now, the most logical thing that pops into my head is that while you're standing there saying you want to bring death to America, while you're saying you want to destroy the entire system, you do have a choice to go back to whichever country you came from, or whichever country your parents may have came from. Now, some on the left may say that's racist. I just say it's logical. Also, don't forget, these are the exact people and the exact votes that Joe Biden needs to win the presidency. Don't forget that.
It's the entire system that has to go. No, it doesn't. I like our system. This is America, for crying out loud.
Well, what about...
And there are people who see me say this, oh, he's a conservative now. I'm a conservative. I have not changed. I always liked America and thought death to it was bad.
Well, how about...
I thought that was absolutely shocking, really shocking, that such a large crowd would be going along with that right in the heart of America. And, you know, we're having the same thing in the UK. Huge weekly protests. Many people brazenly showing support for Hamas, chanting from the river to the sea.
Bill Maher makes a pretty good point here, where if you like America, or if you think America is somewhat a good country, then that must mean you're a conservative or a right-wing extremist. Because since about the year 2020 and the George Floyd riots, the left has taken the position, America bad, America racist, so anything that obviously involves America, it must be bad.
I mean, the problem basically is that chanting death to anybody is terrible. I mean, that is just terrible. And part of the problem is that we've slid into a situation where everyone regards these geopolitical issues as being a bit like a soccer match. And, you know, the Israel-Palestine situation is not a case of Arsenal versus Liverpool. It's not the case that basically if you kick the other team, then somehow your team is going to miraculously win. Because the reality is there are no winners right now from this situation. And each team has different, or team if you like, has different people within them with different points of view. So somehow we have to get out of this idea of treating geopolitics as just some kind of soccer match.
Now, this is the usual criticism that you hear on the left. If you hear criticism at all, obviously it's bad chanting death to anyone, right? Well, no The problem here is, once again, it's only one side chanting death. We don't have a bunch of people from Israel in the streets of America saying, hey, let's burn down the country and death to America. We only hear this from one side and one particular party in the United States, and that just happens to be the left.
Yeah, but the problem is that we always expect Israel to act like no other nation would ever act. I mean, they gave back Gaza in 2005. They did land for peace, and they got no peace. They've been rocket attacked ever since, and just lived with it. What other country would do that? If we got rocket attacked, would we let it go on for 20 years? No, we would have annihilated the people who did it immediately.
I mean, I was really shocked that literally within 24 hours of October the 7th, outside the Israeli embassy in London, I live at the end of that road, there were vast crowds gathering. And I assumed, stupidly, that they were gathering to show support for Israel. They were pro-Palestinian people screaming and chanting and celebrating in the streets of West London that this heinous terror attack had happened. You know, I've had a lot of people from both sides on my show debating this, and you can, you know, get very passionate on both sides. I understand that. But I always ask the pro-Palestinian people that come on one question: do you condemn what Hamas did on October the 7th? It is terrifying how many won't condemn it, who won't accept that what that was a terror attack so catastrophic to the psyche of Israel that of course they were going to respond in a ferocious manner. They knew that. Hamas knew what was going to happen.
Now, there is a big difference between wanting peace in the Middle East or thinking that Israel doesn't have a right to exist. There's a big difference between wanting the war to stop in Gaza or wanting all the Jews wiped off the face of the earth. Those are huge differences. Now, for whatever reason in this country, there is a large faction on the left side of politics that cheered on Hamas during October 7th and that are currently cheering on Hamas. And that is the Free Palestine movement. And for whatever reason, the Free Palestine movement, the people calling for peace, always seem to use the most violent rhetoric. Here are some more examples of that.
You care because you guys don't care about anything happening in Palestine or any other country where oppression occurs, because you don't care about the oppression occurring here. And I understand that you guys are all horrible people, but the thing is, 2,300 people being evicted in the last year, those are votes. And you guys, those are votes to win here in Bakersfield. Other people in the global south practice believe in violent revolution against their oppressors. And I hope one day somebody brings the guillotine and kills all of you mother. The increased criminalization for no need other than you don't like when people come and hold you guys accountable for introducing ceasefire resolutions, because the only escalation in violence has been by you all. There's never been metal detectors. There's never been more cops. The only reason you're doing it is because people actually don't care if you guys don't like them, and they're actually resisting, so you want to criminalize them. So regardless of whether you elect people into office, they'll backstab you, they'll let you die, and for that reason, you guys want to criminalize us with metal detectors? We'll see you at your house. We'll murder you.
Now, only in America could you get a non-white male to speak at a board meeting twice while accusing the board members of an escalation of violence, then calling for a guillotine to remove their heads, then coming back for a second time claiming she's going to go to their houses to murder them. And nobody in the audience reacts. Not a single person. Not a single board member reacts. Check this out.
Next speaker, please.
Lance, followed by Kev, followed by Valeria.
Now, I do love to see everybody in the audience there masked up in the year 2024, but this might also show the audience that she's speaking to and why nobody reacted in a negative way. This has somehow become normalized on the left, where you can accuse people of racism, you can say you hate white people, you can call for violence, and hey, that's just another day on the left side of politics. Now, usually there aren't repercussions and people aren't held accountable for saying and doing things like this. Unfortunately for her, though, not today.
Ms. Patel, that was a threat, what you said at the end, and so the officers are going to escort you out and take care of that.
A deputy public defender entered not guilty pleas on Patel's behalf to 8 counts of threatening a public official and 10 counts of making terroristic threats. She's due back in court later this month.
Now, this woman ended up getting charged with 18 felony counts, and even though her crimes were caught on camera, she still pleaded not guilty, so I can't wait to see how this case plays out. It also makes you think, though, in public, on camera, what made her think she could say these kinds of things and not have any repercussions? This is the extremism that Bill Maher is talking about, where the left has moved this far left where that's the norm now. And if you haven't moved that far left with it, then that must obviously mean you're a right-wing extremist. So if you don't think America is inherently racist, if you don't think men can have babies, and if you don't think America bad, then there's just no room for you on the left anymore. And that's kind of Bill Maher's point here, where if you don't subscribe to the left's extremism, then you're just not allowed on their side.
To me, this election is going to come down to immigration versus abortion. They're going to run on the border, and the Democrats are going to run on the woman's right to have an abortion.
And also, Joe Biden, I mean, I'm sorry, but if he's going to start making women's rights the centerpiece of his campaign, okay, let's talk about women's rights and the progressive left, shall we, about allowing trans athletes to compete in women's sport and wrecking women's sport and the integrity of women's sport, because the president of the United States at the moment thinks that's pretty much okay. And I don't think that is okay. I think you should be protecting women's rights full stop. So if I were the Republicans, if I was Donald Trump, and I'm sure he will, that would be an attack line for me. If you care about women's rights, let's see how far that goes. Well, yeah, I do not think that the left in this country in the last few years have shown anything but disdain on that whole debate around women's sports and safe spaces and prisons and the rest of it. This idea that you can be a biological male and I have full respect for trans people, absolutely. I want them to have fairness and equality in life, but not when it erodes the women's rights to fairness and equality.
Yeah. Piers Morgan makes a great point here, pointing out more hypocrisies and more extremism on the left, where Kamala Harris herself, her campaign message is women's rights and giving the women's right to choose. But at the same time, she wants your high school-aged daughter to take a shower with a boy in the girls' locker room if that boy thinks he's a girl that week or that month of the year. And the American public just isn't buying it anymore.
And finally, new rule: if we want to save our country, we should follow the advice good liberals have given for decades and learn from other countries, as long as we're honest about the lessons we're learning, and as long as we're up to date on the current data, such as the unemployment rate in the U.S. is 3.8%, and in Canada it's 6.1%. And of the 15 North American cities with the worst air pollution, 14 are in Canada. I'm not citing these stats because I have it out for Canada. I love Canada and its people and always have. But I hate zombie lies. Zombie lies. That's when things change, but what people say about them doesn't. Yes, for decades, places like Vancouver and Amsterdam and Stockholm seemed idyllic because everything was free and all the energy we needed was produced by riding a bike to your job at the windmill. Canada was where all the treasured goals of liberalism worked perfectly. It was like NPR come to life. But with poutine. Canada was the Statue of Liberty with a low-maintenance haircut and cross-country skis, a giant idealized blue state with single-payer health care, gun control, and abortion on polite demand. Canada was where every woke white college kid wearing pajama pants outdoors who'd had it up to here with America's racist patriarchy dreamt of living someday. I mean, besides Gaza. There's only one problem with thinking everything's better in Canada. It's not. Not anymore, anyway. Last year, Canada added 1.3 million people, which is a lot in 1 year, the equivalent of the U.S. adding 11 million migrants in 1 year. And now they're experiencing a housing crisis even worse than ours. And we're sleeping in tents. The median price of a home here is $346,000. In Canada, converted to US dollars, it's $487,000. And because of mortgage debt, Canada has the highest debt to GDP ratio of any G7 nation. I don't know what that means, but it sounds bad. So does their vaunted healthcare system, which ranks dead last among high-income countries in access to primary health care and ability to see a doctor in a day or two. And it's not for lack of spending. Of the 30 countries with universal coverage, Canada spends over 13% of its economy on it, which is a lot of money for free health care. Look, I'm not saying Canada still isn't a great country. It is, but those aren't paradise numbers. Again, honestly, Canada, I'm not saying any of this because I enjoy it. I don't, because I've always enjoyed you. But I need to cite you as a cautionary tale to help my country. And the moral of that tale is, yes, you can move too far left. And when you do, you wind up pushing the people in the middle to the right. At its worst, Canada is what American voters think happens when there's no one putting a check on extreme wokeness. Like the saga of Canadian shop teacher Kayla Lemieux, whose pronouns are she, her, and those. Kayla is now back to being a guy named Kerry, but 2 years ago, when they showed up to teach children, the progressive high school they taught at said that they, the school, not the person. Really, you couldn't have found another word. We were using that one. Anyway, okay. They were committed to a safe environment for gender expression. Safe for who? What about the children? What about the equipment in that shop class? But who says, no, when it comes to huge, ridiculous tits, let's save that for the kids? And this is why people vote for Trump. They say in politics, liberals are the gas pedal and conservatives are the brakes. And I'm generally with the gas pedal, but not if we're driving off a cliff. On the trans issue, America is no ands, ifs, or buts about it, absolutely alone in the world now, an outlier country. Last month, England's National Health Service announced that there's not enough evidence to support the safety or clinical effectiveness of puberty blockers for third graders, and that they were going to stop fumbling around with children's privates, because that's Prince Andrew's job. Sorry, you two. They're very sensitive about the royal family, I'm telling you. I found out.
We'll make an exception.
All right. So, too, with all the other good place countries, in direct opposition to America's choice to affirm children's wishes on switching gender, no matter the age or psychiatric history. The far left, which always like to use, well, Europe does it. Yeah, no, that doesn't work on this one anymore. Or on immigration. Sweden opened its borders to over 1.5 million immigrants since 2010, and now 20% of its citizens are foreign-born, and its education system is tanking, and it has Europe's highest rate of gangland killings. And one result is that the far-right parties are in the government now there for the first time. To which liberals say blaming immigrants for the rising crime rate is racist. Yeah, but is it true? Of course it's true. It's not a coincidence the quality of life went down after the Somali gangs started a drug turf war using hand grenades. Calling it racist doesn't solve the problem. It hands future elections to someone who will solve the problem and who, I promise, you're not going to like.
All right, so Bill Maher makes some interesting points here, and he also points out some more extremism, whether it's the universal healthcare system that everybody just gets free healthcare, but the systems ran into the ground, whether it's puberty blockers for kids, whether it's sexually deranged teachers pushing their weird sexual fetishes onto kids. All those things always seem to be coming from the left. And even though Bill Maher hates Donald Trump, even though he has Trump derangement syndrome to the fullest, he might have more in common with Trump than he thinks. And if you're one of those Democrats out there trying to walk that middle aisle, if you're an independent out there, what do you want this country to look like in the next 4 years? Are you okay with kids in this country being put on puberty blockers? Are you okay with high school aged boys and girls being forced to use the same locker room if a boy just decides he's a girl that month out of the year? What do you want this country to look like? Do we want chance with death to America, or do we want people to stand tall again, to love this country, to respect this country, and to respect each other? Let me know in the comments what you guys think. I appreciate you watching if you made it this far. Thanks for the support. Make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Thanks again, guys.
Israel is ISIS. They are Nazis. They are fascists. They are racist. The people of the world now know this.
At a rally in your district, people were chanting death to America. Do you condemn?
Talk to Fox News.
But do you condemn chants of death to America?
I don't talk to people that use racist tropes.
Why can't you just say whether or not you condemn people chanting death to America? Is death to America racist?
Fox News.
Is chanting death to America racist?
I'm talking about your guys' racist tropes. You know, you guys know exactly what you do. And I know you're Islamophobic, but you guys got to go deal with it on your own self. You're not going to use me.
Which is basically calling for the genocide of the Jewish people.
Right.
She defended that as aspirational.
She's a disgrace, and it appalls me that she's in the United States Congress, but I'll leave it at that. Thanks, Lauren.